Welcome, all you sinners and sodomites, to episode 71 of Bible Stories for Atheists. I am Josh.
I'm Linz.
And we are your guides to the truly torturous stories, literally, literarily littering the Bible.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, when we're recording.
Yeah.
Yes.
True Catholic holiday that's been turned into a glorious day of alcohol consumption.
Right. Yeah. Just as Jesus would have wanted.
A celebration of St. Patrick chasing all of the snakes out of Ireland.
Yeah. I wonder how St. Patrick would have actually felt about everybody just using his life as an excuse
to drink,
to get drunk.
Well, you know. Catholic, so probably fine.
Yeah. As long as they're not gay.
Right.
That's
as long as they smack their wife at the end of it, I'm pretty okay with it. Don't touch any buttholes unless they're children.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In this episode, I forgot to write it down. We're covering 1 Kings, 4 through 11, I think, or something, somewhere around there. So strap in and strap on for episode 71, A Biblical Guide to Banging 1,000 Chicks.
Subtitle, An Incel's Journey.
I'm the Bible. All right. Previously on BSFA, David died again. We covered it once in Chronicles, but now he's dead in Kings. Solomon had a bunch of his enemies killed. God granted Solomon a wish, and his wish was for wisdom, because only an idiot doesn't wish for more wishes. And when faced with a conundrum of two women claiming to be the mother of a baby, his divine wisdom was to cut the baby in half and hope the non-mother will be fine with it.
Right.
So that worked out, because that's how wise he is.
Yeah, because a half a baby is better than no baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's half the work.
Right.
It's actually, if you think about it, half a baby is better than a whole baby.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
A little stinkier, I think.
Yeah.
That's saying a lot, because babies are stinky.
Yeah. 41 biblical listicles to gag over.
Gag-worthy?
Gag-worthy, yeah.
In a good way.
I mean, not really.
Oh. I was saying, are we using the word gag here in the drag queen form of the word gag, or the...
I was coming up with
I have a really bad gag reflex form of the word gag.
It's open to interpretation, right? It could be gaggy in a good way or in a bad way.
Okay.
Yeah. But most likely in a bad way. So Kings 4 starts off with just naming a bunch of Solomon's officials.
Okay.
And how rich Solomon was.
Oh, right.
So skipping almost all of it.
Good.
And but here's the last paragraph of it. God gave Solomon very great wisdom, discernment, and breadth of understanding as vast as the sand on the seashore, so that Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, wiser than Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Heman, Calcul, and Darda, children of Mahol. His fame spread throughout all the surrounding nations. He composed 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He would speak of trees, from the cedar that is in the Lebanon to the hyssop that grows in the wall. He would speak of animals and birds and reptiles and fish. People came from all the nations to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom.
Can we talk about the difference between wisdom and just knowing things?
Sure.
Don't you think there's a difference
there?
Yeah.
Like if you memorized an encyclopedia, there's a difference between
knowing all of that and being wise enough to make
use of that knowledge. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I don't know, maybe he was making use of it and that's why he was wise. But to me, it sounds like they were just saying, here's all the things he knows.
Yeah.
And to me, it just sounds like, here's all the things he wrote about looking at.
It sounds to me like being wise was very important to him.
Yeah.
Being perceived as wise was very important.
Right.
And that's how it was written.
Gotcha.
Whatever the actual case of how wise he was, we don't know. But,
right.
Yeah.
We've all met people in our lives, and sometimes I'm one of them, who consider themselves like smart or wise. And then you hang out with them for a little while and you're like,
misjudged that. Yeah.
Or they are, but they're annoying, so you just don't want to listen to them anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they know a lot of things, but because they won't ever fucking shut up about it, you're like, I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
At all. And it sounds like Solomon was maybe that sort of guy.
Right.
But because he was the king, everyone was just kind of forced to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
Not a good place to be in. Also, like, okay, so his wisdom was as vast as the sands on the sea.
Yeah.
On the shore of the sea.
Like each sand grain is an
that
idea?
What they're talking about? Is that what the vastness is? Because when I think of vast, I think about like width. So I'm like, some beaches aren't that wide.
Yeah.
But it could mean all of the grains of sand.
Right.
Yeah.
Is each an idea that he has?
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of ideas.
A thought. Yeah, I guess.
You said He-Man on purpose, right? It's probably like Haman or something like that.
I don't know. There's no pronunciation guide to it. So
I feel like geographically, Haman makes more sense.
I think this is probably where He-Man originated.
By the power of Grayskull.
Yeah.
Solomon is more wise than He-Man.
Most people don't realize that He-Man is in the Bible.
Makes him look like a real Prince Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was weird how they call out a few specific people here, like He-Man. I asked ChatGPT about this. It said that Ethan, the Ezrahite, is traditionally associated with the authorship of Psalm 89, as its heading attributes it to him. The psalm is a reflection of God's promises to David, lamenting the current troubles, but also affirming trust in God's covenant. The exact historical identity of Ethan is not clear beyond these references, and like many figures mentioned in the Bible, much of what we know comes from the biblical text itself and various traditional interpretations. So we don't really know who Ethan was.
So Ethan wrote a psalm about David.
It's attributed to him, yeah.
And that makes him wise because he wrote some mumbo jumbo about the king.
There's probably more about this guy back then, but like it's been lost to time. Yeah.
It really discredits the use of the word wise, though, to mean like I could make anything up and make it sound true. And people could consider me wise.
Right.
I mean, anyone who runs a cult, all of their followers think the cult leaders are wise, but really they're just saying whatever the fuck they want and making people believe it. So it's less that they're wise and more just really good salesmen.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, you see that a lot.
Haven't read any of the Psalms or the songs of Solomon or heard you read them. Really is
right. Right.
But my guess is like they're not all great. I'm sure.
I mean, it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's an art form.
They're sexy though, right? Is that what I hear?
That's Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
Specifically. Yeah. That's the risque book of the Bible.
Ooh.
Yeah. The one that.
It's one we're going to record naked.
Well, we record all of the episodes naked. I don't think we've ever mentioned that to the audience, but like since the beginning, every single episode.
Always naked. Even the ones Connor and Jill were on.
They weren't naked, but we were.
It wasn't awkward at all.
No. ChatGPT also said that He-Man is mentioned in 1 Chronicles 6:33 and 15:17 through 19. Mention him as a singer in the temple and a leader of David's choir, indicating his prominence in the musical and liturgical life of Israel. Psalm 88 is attributed to He-Man, suggesting his role not only as a musician, but also as a contributor to biblical literature.
I see.
When it comes to Calcol and Darda, his apparent brothers, we don't know anything about them. Sons of Mahol, we don't know anything about Mahol. Whatever that
Mahol.
is worth. Yeah, Mahol. 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 Mahol.
Mahol.
Mahol.
Oh, Mahol.
The sons of Mahol.
When He-Man leaves, I say, oh, Mahol.
Okay. Chapter 5 is about King Hiram of Tyre and Solomon. Hiram was apparently an ally of David's. They negotiate a trade. Hiram gets food and Solomon gets lumber for the temple, basically. Like a bunch of cedar that doesn't grow naturally around them. And there's some overlap with 2 Chronicles. So therefore, new book unlocked. So far, there hasn't really been anything worth calling out at the beginning of 2 Chronicles as overlapping, and we still don't really need to here. It's basically the same, but the chronicler just put it in his own words. But there is a little thing right at the end of 2 Chronicles 2. Then Solomon took a census of all the aliens who were residing in the land of Israel after the census that his father David had taken, and there were found to be 153,600. 70,000 of them he assigned as laborers, 80,000 as stonecutters in the hill country, and 3,600 as overseers to make the people work. Yeah. Weirdly, though, no issues, even though they call out David's census, no issues taking account of these people. Apparently.
No, you can't count the people of Israel, Josh. Aliens
but the
fine.
Aliens apparently are fine.
Yeah,
but
it's
weird
how many slaves you're going to have.
But it's weird how they call out after the census of David,
right.
you know.
FYI, I learned from my dad.
Yeah.
I didn't count Israelites, just aliens.
Just aliens.
How many slaves do I have is what I'm trying to find out.
1 Kings 6 starts with, in the 480th year after the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, he began to build the house of the Lord. So this gives us a touch point for when the Israelites would have been in Egypt, according to the Bible, right? So this is like how... especially Christian historian, quote unquote historians, Christian biblical scholars, and I'm putting those in really big, bold air quotes when I say biblical scholars. That's how they backtrack the date of when the Exodus should have happened, is because this gives you a touch point of like exactly how many years from when Solomon was reigning.
But when was
when was Solomon reigning? Well, we've got that because like that actually is like a historical thing, right? So like we actually can tell pretty certainly when Solomon was king. By backtracking. But as we mentioned before, there's no actual evidence of the Exodus.
Right.
Then we get the dimensions of the temple and the furnishings of the temple. In the middle of it, God suddenly breaks in with this. Now the word of the Lord came to Solomon concerning this is God speaking, concerning the house that you are building. If you walk in my statutes, obey my ordinances, and keep all my commandments by walking in them, then I will establish my promise with you that I made to your father David. I will dwell among the Israelites and will not forsake my people Israel. I guess God mentioned this to Solomon just in case he forgot, because he said all this to Solomon before. But
yeah,
it's a weird thing that he just breaks in the middle of all this to say that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, just as a reminder.
Yeah. One thing I thought was nerdy about this was that 2 Chronicles 4 mentions all of these figures of bulls as being part of the furnishings, and Kings doesn't mention that at all. Bulls were associated with the gods Baal and El in the area back before the cult of Yahweh took over and stuff. So it's just kind of an interesting thing that this is mentioned. I don't know largely what it means, but like that they are calling out figures of bulls in the temple. Again, Baal and El seem to be the basis of what Yahweh became, like they were the ones that were worshipped before. So the temple is built in 1 Kings 7. Solomon is building his house for 13 years.
His house, not God's house.
Right. They then switch to him building his own house.
Okay.
For 13 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. And a list of all the crap a bronze worker made for him. That's what's also in that chapter. Okay.
Anything fun?
No.
Toilets fun. Or dildos or...
No, that was all made out of cedar.
Cedar.
Is it a hardwood?
I don't think so. I think it's a softwood.
Yeah, like pine. Yeah. So you want like mahogany.
Right.
A mahogany dildo. 1 Kings 8, they moved the ark from the tabernacle to the temple. Then the priests brought the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place in the inner sanctuary of the house, the most holy place, underneath the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread out their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubim made a covering above the ark and its poles. The poles were so long that the ends of the poles were seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but they could not be seen from the outside. They are there to this day. There is nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone that Moses had placed there at Horeb, where the Lord had made a covenant with the Israelites when they came out of the land of Egypt. And when the priests came out of the holy place, a cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud. For the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord.
Now hold on just a minute. How do they know what's in the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah.
They didn't open it. You're not supposed to open it. Bad things happen when you open it. So did somebody open it?
Well, bad things happen when you touch it. I have no idea about opening it.
I thought they had opened it in that one story.
Which one?
The one where everyone got sores.
Well, there was the one with the cart.
Yeah.
And I think they had just touched it.
Oh, I thought they had opened it.
They may have opened it, but I imagine they touched it to open it.
Yeah.
If they did.
Yeah.
But then there was the other, also with a cart, when they were transporting it with a cart. This is the thing that they learned. Stop transporting it with a cart.
Right.
We need poles.
Giant poles.
Long poles.
Yeah. So I assume like when you're watching a movie and you're seeing somebody carrying like a person, like in the old times,
like a stretcher. Well, like the old stretchers.
Not a stretcher, literally be like a little princess sitting in the middle of this little tiny house. And there'd be the people carrying it on their shoulders on long poles.
Right.
Right. I assume that's kind of what that's in my head. That's what
kind of,
would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember. I don't know what you would call one of those things.
Princess house.
Yeah.
This is God's princess house.
Princess car.
Yeah. It's the Pope-mobile.
Yeah. Pope-mobile. Yeah. So yeah, this is the original Pope-mobile. The first pope was the Ark of the Covenant.
So they left it in there. The poles were really long, so it stuck out of the inner sanctuary, but not out of the house. I don't know.
It's so long, but that like you don't see it.
Who the fuck cares?
I know.
Who cares about the stupid poles?
And they're still there to this day.
Yeah. Okay. But the ark isn't, just the poles.
No, neither is the temple itself. Right. You know?
Yeah. So they set it down, and then God fills the house with God smoke.
Right.
So that people couldn't stand in it.
Apparently, for some reason.
Like, this is mine. Get out.
It was so potent they couldn't stand to minister.
What do you think God smoke smells like?
Sulfur. Again, the Bible says God and Satan are the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, too funny.
Yeah. And then Solomon has a prayer and blesses everyone, and there's sacrifices and a festival. In 2 Chronicles, the fire of God comes down and cooks the sacrifices, but that's not in 1 Kings for some reason.
Okay.
So the chronicler seems to be like throwing in more miracles. Like they're like, not enough miracles.
Yeah, they didn't eat raw meat, guys. God cooked it.
Yeah. Yeah. Among all the other things God is, he's also a barbecue.
Yeah, he didn't want them to eat raw meat or cook it themselves, I guess. Yeah. Would be the implication if you just didn't mention it.
Right.
Instead, it was like, no, God cooked it with his God fire. Where do you think God smoke comes from?
Yeah, God fire. Which smells like propane. The beginning of 1 Kings 9 has a warning from God about staying true to him, or he'll banish Israel from the land. Almost like it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throughout history.
Mm-hmm. This is the account of the forced labor that King Solomon conscripted to build the house of the Lord and his own house. All the people who were left of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not of the people of Israel, their descendants who were still left in the land, whom the Israelites were unable to destroy completely, these Solomon conscripted for slave labor, and so they are to this day. But of the Israelites, Solomon made no slaves. They were the soldiers. They were his officials, his commanders, his captains, and the commanders of his chariotry and cavalry. So this goes back to the beginning of this podcast when we were talking about Chapage. You remember that? Where God kept bringing up to Moses, like, I will deliver the land, from the Canaanites and Hivites and blah, blah, blah. And we came up with Chapage as like a shorter way of saying that. Yes. So these are the people who are left of
from
those
people.
Yeah. And, likely this is the reason why they probably went back and added that stuff into like promising that to them, because that gives them an excuse to enslave these people.
Right.
Selling that to the Israelites and everything.
And gives the state of Israel today a good reason to say all Israelites must serve in the army because, God says, Solomon said way back in the day, all Israelites are my army and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whatever he said.
Yeah. And it is interesting that God would take the land away from these people and give it to the Israelites. And now God is just allowing them to be slaves to the Israelites. These people that God created and loves just as much as anybody else.
Does he though?
Yeah. Does he though? If you were, if you're Jewish and you believed in this stuff and everything, you would probably think he doesn't. He loves Israelites better than he does other people, or at least he did back then, because that's what the Bible says, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of current political stuff that you could really get into with this conversation. And I don't really we're not going to get into that, but holy fuck is the shit that's happening today really, really dependent on like the claims of something that happened so long ago that was just a complete made up story so that these people could move from one land to another.
Yeah. And, so talking about Israelite nationalism,
Mm-hmm.
This is full of that stuff because, in that day and age when they suffered from, having the northern kingdom sacked in the I can't remember 700s BCE or something like that. They had to recover from that, and they put in all this stuff about being unified and like, we're better than all the forces around us kind of thing. And then they got sacked again. So they put in more stuff about being unified and like, we're better than everybody else. And it just turns into nationalism,
Right. And I think a certain level of nationalism is important to a society.
Yeah.
But like,
it's not
when it
bad
becomes
to be proud of your heritage.
Right.
And
when
stuff.
It becomes elitism.
Right.
Is like, that's when things get very messy.
Superiorism.
Yeah.
Right. Like thinking your culture is superior to others, Yeah. Then in 1 Kings 10, the Queen of Sheba comes to visit. Yeah.
I know this name.
When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, fame due to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with riddles. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba had observed all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his valets, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, it took her breath away. So she said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes saw it. Not even half had been told to me. Your wisdom and prosperity far surpassed the report that I had heard. Happy are your wives. Happy are these servants who continually attend you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king to execute justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, a great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did spices come in such quantity as that which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon.
Is this the only thing we hear about the Queen of Sheba, or does she come up again?
That's it.
Why do I feel like in my life, people have said to me things like, "Who the fuck do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba?" Like,
that's a good question. I honestly don't know what that meant, what that ever meant.
Yeah. Am I wrong? Was that just something in my little part of the
No, I think you're right, but I don't know like what that really means.
Is it like, is there is it because she has the audacity to like test him? But it doesn't make you feel like that's a bad thing in this. Well, in your reading, it makes it sound very sexy.
Yeah. But that's like, what it really like kind of came across, but then nothing happens with them.
Yeah. So I'm confused as to why like my entire life people have kind of made it like when you're, I don't know. I guess I don't know what the implication is being compared to like who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba? Like, what does that mean? Do I think that I have more power than I actually do? Do I think I'm more important than I actually am? Is it my audacity to question people in power? Like, I guess I don't know what the insult is.
I just asked ChatGPT, when somebody asks, "Who are you, the Queen of Sheba?" it's usually a rhetorical question implying that the person is person being addressed is acting with an excessive sense of entitlement or displaying an overly grand, pretentious demeanor.
Yeah.
The Queen of Sheba is a figure mentioned in the Bible, Quran, and other historical texts, known for her wealth, wisdom, and a visit to King Solomon. In this context, the reference is often used humorously or critically to suggest that somebody is behaving as if they have the same high status or importance of the Queen of Sheba. I don't think there's really any significance to it. It's just like, why her instead of like anybody else mentioned in the Bible?
Yeah, it's such a brief interaction.
Yeah,
really. I mean, okay,
but maybe there's more significance outside of the story too, historically. But yeah, when it comes to the Bible, this is about it.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, you don't get a ton of. First of all, you don't get a ton of mentions about women in power back then.
Right. Yeah.
Not a ton. So the fact that she's the one that came to talk to Solomon and test his wisdom and offer up all of these riches and stuff like that is interesting. But also that then it ties back to like this colloquialism of like being pretentious.
Yeah. Right.
I can see it.
But nothing about her comes across as pretentious to me.
But listen, I can see like back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean like, 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, like men reading that story and be like, who the fuck does this bitch think she is coming and testing Solomon?
Yeah. Yeah. It might be a sexist, going through a sexist filter with that. Yeah. Right. What's weird about this is that they keep saying that these other royals keep just giving him shit for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the only time this happens. Right after this, Hiram gives him more wood and precious stones. It says, meanwhile, King Solomon gave to the Queen of Sheba every desire that she expressed, and as well as what he gave her out of Solomon's royal bounty. Then she returned to her own land with her servants. It also says the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. That's how you know it's evil.
Yeah.
Besides that, which came from the traders and from the business of merchants and from all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land. So people just keep giving them fucking money for nothing.
I feel like that is still a thing that happens though amongst the rich. Like there's always a trading of a trading of wealth.
Well, yeah, it makes sense when they're trading in general, like that, like the food for wood or something like that makes sense. But
what they're trading for, Josh, is God's favor.
I guess apparently, yeah.
If he is God's guy, is so reported,
right?
Then if you were from a country that believed in that same God or believed in multiple gods, then why wouldn't you want to make God's guy happy?
I wonder if he's so rich because he did set up such a slave labor force, though.
Oh yeah, when you don't have to pay for things to get fucking built.
That's what's like going unsaid here, probably, is that he actually built up a huge slave labor force, and that's why he's so wise.
Yeah,
He
didn't invent slavery, but he sure did benefit from it.
Right. Yeah. 1 Kings 11 starts with this. King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the Israelites, "You shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for they will surely incline your heart to follow their gods." Solomon clung to these in love. Among his wives were 700 princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon followed Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not completely follow the Lord, as his father David had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. He did the same for all his foreign wives who offered incense and sacrifice to their gods. Then the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him concerning this matter, that he should not follow other gods. But he did not observe what the Lord commanded. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this has been your mind, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and give it to your servant. Yet, for the sake of your father David, I will not do it in your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. I will not, however, tear away the entire kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen."
I think God has false memory about how much David loved him.
Yeah, I know. It really is. It's an interesting thing that Dr. Joel Baden has called out. Like, it was something that they seem to do is just set up David as like the benchmark for all other kings.
Right.
Like, oh, they do good as David had done, or they did not do good as David had done.
God got mad at David a lot.
Yeah, I know.
God wouldn't even let David build his house.
Right. Yeah. Or count the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 700 wives plus 300
concubines.
Yeah. 1,000 wives.
1,000. Yeah.
That were just concubines or foreigners.
So literally, like, if it was like one a day,
right,
it would take a couple of years, more than a couple of years to get through everybody. Yeah.
If it was one a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably some he didn't even, like, maybe they got married and he had sex with them once and that's it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
What a fucking, I mean, talk about a pussy hound.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's interesting when you do stuff like that too, because like, well, that's 700 women that like, that's 700 dudes in your kingdom that don't get to have wives.
Right.
You know? And, well, I mean, that creates a dynamic.
It does.
You know, like that, especially if he's not the only one doing this.
Right.
It's an interesting thing because of like I've been learning a lot about Mormonism and like the polygamist side of the fundamentalist Mormonisms. And they you know, like when it comes to the really bad ones, they set up these structures where almost like a pyramid scheme type of thing where, like, you know, the number of wives you have reflects the kind of trust that the leaders have in you, how well you've done, and they can be taken away at any time, you know, and stuff. And it creates this interesting dynamic where like all the sons end up having a lot of pressure be put on them to follow along. Otherwise they get kicked out, and they want to kick out a shitload of sons and make them not be considered worthy enough because, you know, you need to get rid of more men,
right,
if you're going to,
you
know, hoard all the women.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's gross. For sure.
Yeah.
What, I mean, but like, what an easy rule to follow that Solomon was just like, no, I can't. I just love foreign pussy so much that like, I will follow all of God's other rules, all of them,
right,
every single one of them, except this one.
Yeah.
I cannot stop marrying women who aren't Israelites.
Solomon just really wasn't into Israelite women.
First of all, can we talk about how we're probably all related? I don't really want all my wives to be like on my family tree. You know, they're just freer in their sexuality.
Do you guys have any idea what Hivite women will do? You know?
But the side effect is like, they all worship all these abominations that I have to build them little things for.
we should talk about the Astarte.
Astarte.
So
is that the goddess?
It's been a while since we've talked about her, but Astarte is also known as Asherah, and this is the wife of Yahweh.
Okay.
The wife of El. This is there's writings that have been found in Ugarit, which is north of Israel. There was like thousands of writings found that were mostly like hymns and religious texts that were found in this area from around this time. And it gives us a little of a glimpse of what it was like before monotheism really took over in the area. And one of the things was Yahweh had a wife that they call out, and so did El, the same wife, because El is Yahweh. Yeah. And Asherah was, or Astarte.
Is that why they refer to her as a goddess and everything else is an abomination?
Probably, because I don't really know anything about these other deities, but I imagine they were probably just worshipped in the areas around, probably equivalent to Yahweh or something, like kind of like Zeus and all that. So
yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they when they referred to her as the goddess, and then every single other one that you mentioned was referred to as the abomination.
Yeah. There is a thing too with Molech that I've heard before, and I didn't follow up on this for this, but Molech, apparently they're not positive about how to translate that, because it might be like it's a deity. It also might be a practice. And they think there's evidence that Molech is the term for child sacrifice.
Oh.
So Solomon might have been doing child sacrifices here.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Or human sacrifices. Right. It might just be human sacrifices.
Or at least opening it up to like people in his world, his orbit, to be doing it. Because to me, I doubt Solomon was going to all of these temples and actually doing anything.
Yeah.
He was just having them built for his wives, is what sounds like.
He wasn't actually doing the building. Right.
Or I even think probably not going there even.
Oh, right. He's just signing the orders.
He's just saying, wife number 526 needs a temple to this goddess. Let's fucking build. She won't shut up. And listen, I have 1,000 wives. I can't listen to all of them bitch all the time.
Yeah.
Just build them whatever the fuck they want and leave me alone.
There are things about this that, like, when you look past the crap of the Bible that it portrays, you see some interesting things. Like, okay, David couldn't build the temple because he was all about warfare.
Right.
Like, he had warfare going on. Solomon has peace all around him.
Right.
So he is able to build the temple. Oh. He has all these wives and stuff like that. I really wonder how much of it was like, well, all this money was getting spent on warfare under David, but now that's done.
Right.
That money needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So it goes into a temple, goes into a house for Solomon, goes into 1,000 wives, basically.
Because wives weren't free. You had to pay for them.
Yeah.
You had to pay their families.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of get the feeling like that's what's kind of behind all the bullshit of the Bible. Yeah. We're kind of getting a picture of like
how they spent the extra money.
Yeah. And instead of like helping the people of Israel, which I'm guessing there was probably people hungry.
Trickle-down economics did not even work back then.
No, it never did. It never did.
If we're going to use the Bible as the source of like capitalism, like, it should definitely be noted that trickle-down economics has never worked.
Right. I think God just make more gold, you know? Then the Lord raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the royal house in Edom. For when David was destroying Edom and Joab, the commander of the army, went up to bury the dead, he killed every male in Edom. For Joab and all Israel remained there 6 months until he had eliminated every male in Edom. But Hadad fled to Egypt with some Edomites who were servants of his father. He was a young boy at that time. They set out from Midian and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who who gave him a house, assigned him an allowance for food, and gave him land. Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him his sister-in-law for a wife. The sister gave birth by him to his son Genubath. When Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his ancestors and that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, "Let me depart, that I may go to my own country." But Pharaoh said to him, "What do you lack with me that you now seek to go to your own country?" And he said, "No, let me go." It's a weird little thing.
Yeah, he didn't give him a reason.
Yeah.
He was just like, no, let me go.
Let me go.
Yeah. I mean, you said my own country. Do you understand? Like, you just basically said it. You said the reason why I want to go.
Yeah.
It's my own country.
Right.
You have one. I want mine too.
Yeah. So we finally get the first hint of some like conflict for Solomon, right? You know, besides splitting a baby.
Right. Well, and that's because God isn't protecting him anymore because of all of his wives.
Because of all his wives, yeah.
His God worships.
Yeah. If you have do you have any predictions for like based on everything we've seen with the Bible and stuff like that? Like, how do you think this would go with having this enemy rising up?
Oh, I mean, I feel like when it comes to like this family specifically, like it always works out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. Yeah, it is. It does.
Yeah. There'll be a little bit of
for now, at least.
Right. Yeah. There'll be, I mean, there'll be maybe a battle.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, Solomon will fucking divorce all his wives and make amends for all of the shit that he's done or burn all the fucking whatever's
the high places
that he's built. And then God will be like, all right. Right. I'll help you this time. Listen, I'm still going to stick by what I said last time.
Yeah.
Right. I said I wasn't going to take anything away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to wait until your son. I was going to do generational trauma on your family, as I'm known to do.
Yes.
But I did say I wouldn't take it from you. So I will help you out in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good guess and everything. Except we actually just don't hear anything more about this at all.
We don't hear about Hadad going back to his country.
Nothing.
So it mentions that a rival arises.
Yeah.
And then there's no rivalry.
No.
Well, that's
not with this guy.
Fucking plot hole.
Yeah. Immediately after that, we get this. God raised up another adversary against Solomon. Rezon, son of Elida, who had fled from his master, King Hadarezer. He gathered followers around him and became the leader of a marauding band after the killing by David. They went to Damascus, settled there, and made him king in Damascus. He was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon, making trouble as Hadad did. He despised Israel and reigned over Aram.
Oh, so they were just like, they didn't have warfare. These guys were just making trouble for Solomon.
That's how they present it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're the Bugs Bunny to Solomon's Elmer Fudd.
Yeah. But really, when you think about it, it's like, well, so he did have warfare then. Like if he was battling these guys and stuff like that. And even then, like, even if it wasn't to the extent David did, you know, it's not like he didn't have some battles and stuff, you know, but Jeroboam rebelled against the king. The following was the reason he rebelled against the king. Solomon built the Milo and closed up the gap in the wall of the city of his father David. The man Jeroboam was very able, and when Solomon saw that the young man was industrious, he gave him charge over all the forced labor of the house of Joseph. About that time, when Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah found him on the road. Ahijah had clothed himself with a new garment. The two of them were alone in the open country when Ahijah laid hold of the new garment he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. He then said to Jeroboam, "Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus says the Lord, the God of Israel. See, I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon and will give you 10 tribes.
One tribe will remain his, for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city that I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. This is because he has forsaken me, worshipped Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the Ammonites, and has not walked in my ways, doing what is right in my sight and keeping my statutes and my ordinances, as his father David did. Nevertheless, I will not take the whole kingdom away from him, but will make him ruler all the days of his life, for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose, and who did keep my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom away from his son, and give it to you, that is, the 10 tribes. Yet to his son I will give 1 tribe, so that my servant David may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I have chosen to put my name. I will take you, and you shall reign over all that your soul desires. You shall be king over Israel. If you will listen to all that I command you, walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight by keeping my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, I will be with you, and I will build you an enduring house as I built for David. And I will give Israel to you. For this reason, I will punish the descendants of David, but not forever.
Solomon therefore sought to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam promptly fled to Egypt, to King Shishak of Egypt, and remained in Egypt until the death of Solomon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So who the fuck is Jeroboam?
Yeah. So he'll be more prevalent
Where did
coming
he come
up.
From?
He was, I cut some of this out, but he's the son of a servant of Solomon's.
Okay. So just a random dude.
Kinda. Probably had more significance than what they are portraying here,
Right.
but yeah.
So he's heading out on a walk or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ahijah.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Elijah. And
Who is wearing new clothes.
Yeah.
Rips his new clothes.
Right. Into 12 pieces.
Into 12 pieces to represent the 12 tribes of Israel.
Which there's actually 13.
Right. But they combine the 2. Right.
Yeah. There's 2 of them that were the 2 tribes that were descended from Joseph. Is
right.
Yeah, what they combine into one.
So this, I assume, old dude is passing Jeroboam on the path and like goes into what I guess would be a prophetic frenzy.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And starts tearing his clothes and does 12 pieces. And could you imagine being Jeroboam walking down this path and just an old dude starts ripping his clothes off in front of you and tearing him into pieces?
This is why I don't like living in the city.
And then being like, you're going to be the leader of like 10 tribes of Israel?
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere? God really does that to people. It's insane to me that he just plucks these kind of nobodies. Because even David, like.
Oh, yeah. It's a theme of the Bible that is not for no reason.
Right.
You know, people like that story of, it's the Harry Potter story.
Yes.
Right. You know, the Willy Wonka story.
Yep.
But
it's just crazy to me. So he's going to get 10, not all 12, because David was a solid guy.
Yep.
According to God's current memory.
Yeah. God's current memory. Yeah.
So he's only giving Solomon's son one other tribe. I'm assuming he gets his own tribe.
No. So it's an interesting thing that they just don't say here, but Jeroboam will get 10 tribes.
Mm-hmm. Solomon's kid, will get 1 tribe. That's only 11.
That's only 11. There's the Levites who don't have any land.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Is my understanding of this. That being said, another thing, again, they don't even really reference the 12 tribes as 12 tribes back then. Like, they very quickly, once you start getting into Joshua and Judges and all of those, they start talking about these sub-tribes a lot. So it's like, it's tough to keep it all straight.
Well, then why did he rip his clothes into 12?
Well, but the land of Judah is also going to have the land of Benjamin in there. So I don't know if that somehow, like, because it's like encompassed within the land of Judah. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but
I took it to assume that like it was one tribe outside of his own.
Right. And maybe that is what they're talking about, but because my understanding though is that the tribe of Benjamin was also settled in the southern area as Judah was.
So basically this is a north and south thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And what we're going to end up getting is when the Northern Kingdom falls, that is called the Lost 10 Tribes of Israel.
Okay.
Because those people supposedly are gone, but they're actually still going to be there. Anyway, so Jeroboam, though, is going to end up becoming king of the Northern Kingdom eventually. So that's who this guy is.
Familiar.
We talked about it in episode 10 when we went through the whole history of the Bible and stuff, like the text and everything. This is a pretty significant moment. Also, Solomon's kid is going to be Rehoboam.
Yeah.
So there's Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Both of them mean very similar things. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. Something about like salvation for your people or something like that.
If God's already mad at Solomon for his pussy hounding and multi deity worship, why would Solomon then make the decision if God has hand selected Jeroboam? He's made this statement to Solomon, basically saying, you done fucked up. Here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then God hand selects Jeroboam, and then in Solomon's wisdom decides that the thing he should do is kill that guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't he not think God would
be upset about that?
Yeah. Why would you want to add another check to that God's pissed off column?
Right. Yeah.
By killing that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't really make any sense.
No.
Like it's yet again another behavior described in the Bible that doesn't actually make any sense.
If Dad was mad.
If you had a mad dad.
And liked your sibling more, the solution to making your dad not mad at you isn't then to kill your sibling.
It's not to be bad.
It's not to be bad.
You don't want to be bad
to
stop your dad from being mad.
No, you just make mad dad more mad if you're bad.
And that's not rad.
No, not rad at all. Just nobody wants mad dad to be more mad.
It'll make you sad.
Very sad.
Don't be sad. Get glad. This episode is brought to us by Glad. Now, the rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did as well as his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon? The time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. Solomon slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of his father David. And his son Rehoboam succeeded him. Solomon's dead.
Okay.
Yep. Rehoboam will be taken over. I know, yeah. It was I was surprised that really the only wisdom story we got was the baby splitting one.
Right. And then just a bunch of him talking about being super wise.
Yeah, like them talking about it, like the Queen of Sheba thing and everything, but no real
actual
specific
wisdom. But we do get then all of his, like there are whole chapters of his quote unquote writings.
Oh, the Book of Proverbs and stuff like that. Yeah. And some of the songs.
So one could only
Song of Songs,
surmise that is where his wisdom is kept.
Dwells.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's what they think. But obviously, he didn't write any of that stuff. He just had it written.
Mm-hmm.
So next time on BSFA, Rehoboam is heading into a reign with a prophecy that he's going to lose half of the kingdom because his, I think this is supposed to be stepmom instead of stop mom. Because his stepmom's, let me start this over. Rehoboam is heading into a new reign,
Oh, man.
Rehoboam is heading into a reign with a prophecy that he's going to lose half of his kingdom because his stepmoms are new age mystical weirdos that pissed off God. You know?
Yeah, we've all had those stepmoms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rehoboam and Jeroboam face off or something. There's a conflict, unlike most of the Solomon's reign.
Can't wait.
I know. It's a real hoot and a half.
To see the Boam versus Boam conflict.
Yeah. The Boam off.
Boam off.
Yeah.
Which sounds Russian.
So it really doesn't make any sense, too, going into this conflict. Like, which side is God going to be on?
Right.
You know?
Right. And is it half his kingdom he lost?
Well,
or is it 1/11 of his
kingdom? The reason why I say
10/11.
half of his kingdom is because geographically it was kind of more like half of his
Well,
kingdom.
and the one he's getting is the biggest.
Yeah.
piece.
It's the biggest,
Yeah.
yeah. The kingdom of Judah was by far the biggest tribe.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's it. They all live miserably ever after. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. Help us grow the audience by sharing us with your friends or giving us a share on social media. And we love hearing from you. You can reach out on our website at bsfa.cc.
Just so everyone knows, Josh had a real rough go at it this week. He was like ready to quit the whole thing.
I don't know.
And he made it sound like it was going to be like the worst part of the Bible he's ever had to slog through. And I don't like that. It was not. I don't think it was.
Well, that's because I skip a lot of shit.
So, you know, we all appreciate you, Josh, doing this hard work so that we don't have to.
Thank you.
And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way.
I appreciate it, but yeah. Anyway.
He didn't want me to say anything because he feels weird calling out the fact that he's having a hard time with it. And there's a good chance that you guys aren't even listening to this right now and he's cut it completely out of the podcast. But
I do have final edits. So, I mean. Anyway. Strap in.
He's all right now.
Yeah.